How to configure and restore configurational backups in Identity Service Engine 1.2 version. Before that, let's see why do we require backups. Backups have got two distinct purposes. The primary purpose of the backup is to recover data after its loss, and the data loss can be because of the data deletion or data corruption. The secondary purpose of the backups is to recover data from an earlier time according to a user-defined data retention policy typically configured within a backup application for how long copies of the data are required. So let's log on to the ISE 1.2 and see how to configure the backups, and later point of time we can see how to restore the configurational backup that was taken. So this is your ISE GUI. Log in with the username and the password. Go to the administration tab, and at any point of time the backup strategy starts with the concept of data repository. The same is followed here in ISE as well. The backup data needs to be stored and probably should be organized to a degree level, and the organization should be as simple as it should list all the backup files with the data that were produced on. So for that purpose, let's configure the repository first. Go to the maintenance tab, click on the repository, and it will ask you to add the repository. Click on add, specify the repository name. Here I am specifying it as ISE underscore backup files, and here you have got an option to select the protocol of your interest. There are different types of protocol like disk, FTP, SFTP, TFTP, NFS, CD-ROM, HTTP, and HTTPS. And there are unstructured repositories in these set of protocols. They are CD-ROM, HTTP, and HTTPS. The reason we call these as unstructured protocols because an unstructured repository may simply be a stack of CDs or DVDs with a minimal information about what was backed up and when. This is easy to implement, but probably the least likely to achieve a high level of recoverability. So, and also here for backup and restore operations, the CD-ROM, HTTP, HTTPS or TFTP are not supported because either of these repositories are read-only or the protocol does not support file listing. So in this video, for the demonstration purpose, I'm taking the protocol as FTP, and here I need to specify the server name. It should be the IP address or the name of the server, and here it should be the path, and I'm specifying the username and password, and just click on the submit. When you click on the submit, you will receive a server response that repository was added successfully. So close this, and now go to the backup and restore tab. Before that, let's see whether the repository what we have configured is working fine or not. For that purpose, go to the terminal of ISE 1.2, and this is the terminal of ISE 1.2, and here as you have configured the repository, if you click on show running config, it will display you the repository that is being added. This is the repository what we have added as of now, and in order to see whether the repository is working fine or not, just click show repository and the name of the repository. So the repository name I have specified here is ISE backup files. When you click enter, it will display the files that were already existing in this repository. So in this repository we already have two files, that is my backup and it says configurational and the operational backups. So before that, by this we are able to see that the repository what we have configured is working fine. Now let's go and see how to trigger the backup in ISE 1.2. Cisco ISE allows you to back up data from primary or a standalone administration node and from the monitoring node as well. And backup can be done from the CLI or the user interface. ISE allows you to back up the configurational data which contains both application specific and Cisco ADA operating system configurational data. And it can also have it also has the option to have an operational data that contains the monitoring and troubleshooting data. But in this video, we are going to see only how to configure the configurational backups. So in this backup and restore section, if you want to have an on-demand backups, and here I would like to say we have an on-demand backup and a scheduled backups. So on-demand backups is nothing but which is used for getting the immediate data backup, and the scheduled backups is which if you are planning to get a recurring backups for a weekly or a daily basis or a monthly basis, you can configure the schedulers. So let's see how we can trigger the on-demand backup. Just click on the backup now button and it will ask you for backup name. Specify the backup name as I'm specifying today backup, and and if you have got an option to select whether you need configurational data or an operational data, I'm selecting as a configurational data, and here you have to select the repository, and all the repositories that were created under the maintenance tab will be displayed here. So just click on the select the repository and specify the encryption key. This encryption key is used to secure your data from threats. So just click on the start backup. When you click on the start backup, it will automatically update here. If you can see this section, it is saying that backup is in progress, and the backup name and the start date and the repository name, whether it is a scheduled backup or whether it is a triggered backups, and on which node the backup is triggered, and what is the percentage, and this status says like at what state the current backup status is, and this progress message gives what it is doing here. At as we have started the backup now, it says like starting backup, it is checking the repositories, and the as the progress bar changes, the progress message also change, backing up ISE configurational data. So in this way it happens, and the backup will get triggered, and the progress percentage will show you how to get at what state and in what percentage you are, and in what is the remaining percentage for the backup to get completed. We have just finished backing up the ISE configurational data, and within the data we do have collect some logs, and we are just backing up the ISE logs, and the progress percentage shows as 45%, and it says like the percentage means here how much percentage of the backup has been done, and currently we are at 45%, and we are backing up ISE logs. And we have just reached to 60%, and in this step we are trying to create a tar file of the backup, and once this is done we are going to secure it by doing GPG of that file. And when you see here, the GPG has been done successfully, and the status says like the backup today backup -cfg, and it is appended with a timestamp, and .tar.cpg is copied to a repository as backup files, and that shows like it's a success message. And here I would like to point for all the configurational backups which were taken in ISE 1.2 will be appended with CFG tag, and for all the operational backups it will be appended with OPS. And let's see how we can check the status of the backup from the CLI as well. Go to the CLI and say show backup status, and it will give you a message that what is the configurational backup status if there is any, and it says like the backup is copied to a repository and that is a success. And as we have not triggered any operational backup, it says like no data found, and if there are any uh, errors in getting the backup, where we can look at is an ISE operation audit report. So let's now go and look at the ISE operation audit report and see what happens there. In order to check for the reports, go to the report section, go to the deployment status and click on the operation audit and have a filter of administrator. Click on OK, and here specify the username that you have used for logging into your ISE user interface. I have taken as an admin, and the time range, and when you click on run, it will display you the messages. If you look at these messages, it says like at what point of time, who is the administrator, and what is the IP address, whether the backup has been triggered from the GUI or CLI, and what is the object type, and what is the operation, like I have started it at around this certain timestamp, and the backup is initiated, and on which server, and what is the source of the source server is, and it says like at what point of time the backup has got completed. It says like ISE backup has completed successfully, and what is the event that is triggered is this is the event that is triggered, and it is copied to a specific repository. So this is how where we can look at the logs for the backup, and this is called as an operation audit. Now let's go and see in the CLI whether we have the backup that has been copied to our repository or not. You can say show repository, name of your repository. It will display you the list of files, and this is the file that has been copied. So we are able to successfully have the backup done on ISE1.2, and that has been copied to a repository. And now let's see how to restore the backups. How can we find whether we have restored successfully or not? As this is a fresh installation of ISE1.2, I have created an authentication policy and an authorization policy. Let me delete this test.1x authorization policy, which is available in the backup, and from the authentication policies, let me delete this admin authentication policy, and save. These two authentication and authorization policies are available in the backup file that I have taken now. So what I'm planning to do is, let me try to restore the backup and see if I am able to get these two authentication and authorization policies. So if you select the history of the repository here, it will display you all the files that were available in the repository. The new backup and restore user interface in Cisco ISE 1.2 release makes use of a metadata in the backup file names. Therefore, after backup completes, you should not modify the backup file name manually. If you manually modify the backup file name, the Cisco ISE backup or restore user interface will not be able to recognize the backup file. If you have to modify the backup file name, you should use Cisco ICLI to restore that backups. So that is where, like, as it make uses of the metadata information, and also with the help of this CFG and OPS tags, we will be able to identify whether this is a configurational backup or it's an operational backup. So when you click on the history of the repositories and select the repository, it will display you all the available configurational files and the operational files under this section. So let us restore the operation here. I mean, I'm just trying to restore this backup which we have extracted now, and I'm just clicking on restore, and it will ask you for the encryption key, and it will give you an option whether you want to restore whether the ADEOS or not. If you click on restore ADEOS, the system will reboot during the ADEOS restore, and as of now I am not selecting the option to restore ADEOS. I am just restoring the application data only. Just when you click on the start restore, here it will show you a message restore is in progress, and it will log you out of the user interface. And how can we check whether the restore has been done completely or not? For that purpose, we have to go to the CLI and say show restore status. So I'm just going to the CLI and say restore status. So it says, like, if you look at here, it says like restore operation has done 30%. Restore is in progress, and at this point of time it's like 35% has completed, and at this step it is trying to stop the ISE process that are required for the restoring operations. And let's wait and see, like, till the restore operation is completed successfully. And now the restore progress is at around 40%, and it is restoring ISE configuration data. The backup has completed around 70%, and it's updating the database with its metadata values. So if you see here, the progress bar is around 75%, and it's restoring the logs, and at a later point of time the restore says like it's 90% and restarting the ISE services. So the restore operation is done successfully, and once it's restarted the services, means that the backup is completed successfully and we can log on to the ISE GUI. Now the backup is successful, and when you see the message here, the status message shows as uh, the backup is successful. So now let's log on to the ISE user interface and see if we are able to restore the backup successfully or not. If you go to the administration tab and check for the backup and restore, here the restore message is success. And now let's go and see whether we have the policies that were previously added or not. So this I have deleted after taking the backup of this specific node, and when I restored the backup I was able to get this authentication policy back into my system. And let's go and check with the authorization policy as well. So this is the authorization policy which I have deleted after backing up the system, and now once I back I restored, it is returned. So this is how we need to perform the backup and restore operations. Also, Cisco ISE allows you to schedule system level backups that can be scheduled to run once, daily, weekly, or monthly. Because backup operations can be lengthy and you can schedule them so that they are not a disruption to your day-to-day work. So let's see how to schedule that backups. Go to the backup and restore section, and here you have an option to create. Just click on create and it will ask you for a scheduled backup configuration name. And if you have any description, you can specify here, and you have to select the repository. You have to select the repository. If you click here, you will get the repository name and the encryption key for your scheduled backups. And if you want to enable it now, just you have to select the enable, and if you want to disable this schedule, you have to uncheck this box. And here you have got a frequency. It is whether you want to get it one time or daily, weekly, and monthly. So if I say weekly here, it will get different options like at what time and what day in a week and what is the start time, date, and end date here. And if you select daily, it will display you at what point of time daily you need the backup. And if you say monthly, it will display you accordingly, like on which day of the month you need to back it up, and at what time, and what is the start date and the end date. So if I say on day 1st of a month at 12 a.m. and if I click on save, okay, so I have to start it. It shows like 11:03 IST, and I have to choose like a future start time because already 12 a.m. has crossed on 11:27. So I'm selecting it at start date is on 28th, and just click on save, and your frequency is saved. If you want to edit this frequency, you can just click on this edit button and you can change it to weekly, and you can say it's Saturday, and the start date is of 11, and if you want to specify any end date, you can, otherwise you can leave it blank and just save. So this is how you need to configure your scheduled backups for the configurational data. Hope you have a great time watching this video and able to understand how to configure and restore configurational data in Identity Service Engine ISE 1.2. Thank you.